everybody, I've put together two repos. One is a Hasura Quick Start repo, and one is a Spring GraphQL API repo. So what I'm going to show you is how to connect to a remote schema, which will be the Spring API, and query across to respective databases like that using Hasura. It's a little tricky, but you'll see how it comes together as I show you all of this. So with that, let's get in and clone the Hasura Quick Start, then we'll clone the Spring one. I'll deploy the Spring one, and then I will show some of those remote queries, connecting the remote schema and then the remote queries across the database. So let's get started. All right, this is the first repo. This is the Quick Start. So if you go out to github.com/adrian/hasura-quick-start, you'll find this repo. In the README are the instructions that we are now going to go through right here live together. So git clone that sucker. It'll pop it down into a directory on your local machine. Then navigate into that particular directory. And I always do a Docker PS to see what's running initially. Nothing's running, so I just go right into and do a Docker compose up -d. Doing another Docker PS, you see that I've got the two Docker instances running now, or container instances, Postgres and the Hasura GraphQL engine. Then I navigate into the Hasura directory, then run the metadata apply, then the migrate apply against all databases. There's only one, so it just applies to all of them. And then I, for good measure, run the metadata apply again. I do have a reason for doing that, and it's a good practice to do that. So if I navigate out and run a Hasura console, navigate out to this, you see the pertinent schema that I have thus deployed. So I have a GraphQL API. Hasura is pointed at the particular database, and the GraphQL API is exposing the user's emails and details. Here you can see I have relationships with users, 2 emails and 2 details. So users primary key table, emails and details is the foreign key table. So that's the basic schema here that we have with this Quick Start. Now with the Spring GraphQL API, it's not particularly running against the database. I did that to keep things simple. There's basically 3 steps detailed in the README, just like everything was detailed in the previous README. So let's clone this repo out at Hasura Spring Boot GraphQL, then navigate into this particular directory and kind of go through the same steps here, except we are going to have to do a local build to get the Docker image to be able to run the Docker compose. So you do a build, it'll go out and grab the particular image that has the JDK on it, do the build, and all of that. So now that we have the jar file that we need to do that Docker build, we can now do Docker build -t, etc., and get a build using that jar file, using the appropriate JDK image, etc., etc. There goes pulling down OpenJDK 17 JDK Slim. So it's a reasonably sized image. And as you can see, I didn't particularly speed up this part of the video, but boom, I got a good connection. So pretty quick there. With the image now available locally, I can do a Docker compose up. It's going to grab that image and start the Spring API instance, which you can see there running now. If I go out and run the GraphQL instance that's on that API, which I have enabled in the repo, you can then run some queries against this, and you can see the in-memory data being returned. All right, so just to add some context, I'm going to be running the Hasura GraphQL instance locally, and then I've actually deployed the Spring instance, the GraphQL instance, out onto the web to make this a little easier to work with. Generally speaking, you wouldn't really have both of these stacks locally. The premise of the remote schemas is that you would be connecting out to someone else's microservices or something like that. However, if you are managing both of them, you would want to run them locally, but just know that you have to do more Docker networking and tweaking, etc., to get it all to run on one local machine. Right now, I'm not focused on that. We'll have I'll probably make another video pertinent to that. This is just talking about the remote schema, the connection, then doing the remote join and getting the data back. So let's keep going. So adding a new remote schema to your Hasura instance is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to call this the cool remote schema. You can add a description. The pertinent thing that you need, of course, is your URL, which I'm not putting mine in because it's a ephemeral instance that I'm going to nuke in just a little bit. Also, you need to either forward all headers from your client, or you might need a super secret one like super secret JWT token, or you know, whatever it might be, and then put your value in there and then add remote schema. Mine is already uniquely called Adrian Hall, and it's over here added, as you can see, and you can see the remote schema preview here. And what I need to do is add a relationship to show you what we're going to do. So add a relationship. I'm going to click on remote database, scroll down. I'm going to call this the customer relationship, and go with object relationship because it's basically a one-to-one. And then here, scroll down, I'm going to find sales. Where is it? There's sales data. And then pick the database, schema, users. And down here, finally, connect the user ID to the ID. So that'll connect the sales data to the user's reference table here. I'm going to add that relationship. And there we go. It's been added. So now I can write a query. Let's do that. So now we're going to write a query that's going to go across these two databases and be joined and provided results via this particular Hasura GraphQL API instance, it acting as the gateway between these things. So right now I'm just pulling it from the sales data because that's the direction of the relationship. I pull the sales number is just like I made it the dollar amount of the sale, whatever that might be. And then go in here to the nested detail. That's the customer. And then that customer has a name. And then related elements of that customer is the emails, which let's get the email, and then details. And get the details here as soon as I get done messing up typing. And then query. There we go. So that is a join across two databases, two disparate databases. One has sales data and one has user information. There you can see the nested data, etc., coming back. I got my email addresses there and everything. And then Sally has the sales too, but has no emails or details, as you can see. And that's what it looks like. That's a remote join. Done. All right. So as you can see, that is connecting to a remote schema and doing a remote join. Not a whole lot of steps. You know, you create the relationship and then write that query. Boom, you got it. So I hope that was useful in some way to you trying to build out your solution. If you have questions or comments, there's comments down below. And if it was useful, like, subscribe to the channel. If it wasn't useful, like and subscribe anyway and tell me why it wasn't useful. You know, maybe I'll edit and do another video. But anyway, in the meantime, keep thrashing code.